names we keep hearing as contenders.
Could this be a day or less?
That is the real fight right now going on within the church.
People who don't know anything about this process know about the smoke.
Anybody who says they know how this is going to work, I think maybe should go to confession.
Welcome to The Takeaway. I'm Alex Maragos. In the next few days, the world is about to witness a very rare occurrence, a papal conclave in the Catholic Church. The mix of power, tradition, persuasion, secrecy makes it such an interesting topic, very easy to understand why Hollywood would want to dramatize it. And so our guests today are going to give us excellent insight into the process and also the cardinals who may become the next pope to lead 1 billion Catholics worldwide and an estimated 2 million here in the Chicago area. I have with me Marianne Ahern and Chuck Goudie, who have covered the church for a combined almost 7 decades. And Marianne, you're getting ready to go to the conclave. So my first question is for you. It's your 3rd conclave. Did you pack your bags yet?
I have definitely packed my bags. I am ready and prepared for whatever might happen.
Of all the things you've done covering the church and covering government, where does a conclave rank in just the interest and how much you like to do it?
Well, I think the idea of this is really a global event. This is not just a Chicago. It isn't just the United States. And when you see all the people that are waiting in person in the St. Peter's Square, it gives you that sense of just what a huge deal this is.
Chuck, how would you describe why the world cares so much? I compared it a bit to the royals, the British royals. Even people who are not British and otherwise would never think about that culture, all of a sudden have an interest in the royals. Why is it similar with a conclave?
Right. Well, I tell people that if you think the U.S. Senate is an exclusive club, the College of Cardinals is much more exclusive. And they barely ever meet. I mean, the U.S. Senate at least meets on a somewhat regular basis. The College of Cardinals gets together, at least with the world's eyes on it, when they need a pope.
Yeah. Let's get to the process of it first. I mean, this is hundreds and hundreds of years of tradition, never to really change a great deal. Let's walk through first, Marianne. Take us through what is actually going to happen in this conclave.
Before the actual secrecy of the conclave begins, there's a pre-conclave. They've been meeting. They've been meeting since the funeral. They've actually been meeting since his death. And so they've been talking about the health of the church. First, of course, they did the funeral plans for Pope Francis, but they've been getting to know each other. This pope has appointed more cardinals than any previous pope, and from far different geographic places of Rwanda, Laos, Haiti. So some of them don't even know each other. It's kind of like the big family reunion where you say, oh, yeah, that's my cousin I've never met before. And so there's some of that going on before the actual closing the doors of the Sistine Chapel, jamming devices to make sure we don't hear. And literally not only are they in that chapel until a pope is chosen, they also are taken to the Casa Santa Marta, the hotel where they live. So there is no outside contact until a pope is picked.
So they've got how many cardinals will be voting, and then how many votes can they take to reach a selection?
The latest count is 133. We believe 2 of the 135 that we thought were going to vote are not in good health and will not be there. You have to be under the age of 80, and you need a 2/3 vote to become the next pope.
Okay. And Chuck, you've been looking into how long these conclaves last and the recent ones that we've had. What has the trend line been with how long it takes cardinals to pick a pope?
It looks like at least the last century that it's been trending downward, numbers of days. 100 years ago, the average was about 5 days. Lately, it's been 2 or 3 days. This one may well take even less time just because they have met. There is some sense going into the closed door session of how this is going to play out. So could this be a day or less? I mean, certainly there are people who would hope that that is the case just because let's get started. I mean, that's the feeling in the Catholic Church right now. We've buried this pope. Let's move on and move forward.
Do you think that's because of the more interconnected world that we're in right now? The fact that they can just text each other and learn about their beliefs or learn about their beliefs online, as opposed to hundreds of years ago, someone coming in on horseback from another part of the world, they would have no idea who that cardinal is.
But don't discount the fact that this group, and it's a small group, 135 or less with the couple who are out ill, that they really don't know each other as a body. That it's just the last few days that they've actually met and kind of felt each other out and where they are. And there is a wide range of beliefs and a wide range of geography here. So anybody who says they know how this is going to work, I think, is a liar or maybe should go to confession.
My favorite line from the last couple of weeks, and I know you both have heard of it, those who are talking don't know, and those who know are not talking. Right. Just the secrecy of it is such a great element. So let's talk about some of the influence and some of the, let's see, the trend lines that might emerge. Francis is physically gone, but his influence is still very much part of this College of Cardinals. So Marianne, tell us about how Francis picked so many of these men and what that might lean toward when they have a result.
Right. He sort of stacked the deck in a sense. But I'm reminded as well by those who study this much more closely than I do, that they're not all in his exact image. He is someone that did look for wide-ranging. Now, they might be more progressive if you're going to put them in a category rather than traditionalist. Do they continue with Francis's reforms, cement what he has done, or do they say no and go back to a more traditional path?
Both of you have covered this church for so long and are Catholic. Let's talk about what a moment we're in the church right now. How big a deal is it for whatever road is ultimately chosen? I mean, yes, there's hundreds of years to look back on the church, thousands really. How big of a deal, how big is this fork in the road that they have to choose between something that's more traditional and more progressive?
Well, we talk about the church with a big C.
Yeah.
Really, what we should be talking about are the variety of churches around the world. I mean, the American church doesn't look like the church in Africa. The celebrations are different. The thinking is different. The leadership preaches differently, and so why this is so important is because in the American church on a good Sunday, you have maybe 30% turnout. In many places, it's far less than that. Other parts of the world, the Catholic Church is much more relevant in people's lives, and the turnout to Sunday Mass is greater. The people who go to confession, the numbers are greater. The Catholic schools are a staple of those communities. And the church is trying to get its arms around how to make the global church even across the world. And that's why this selection is going to be so important in 2025.
I do believe COVID played a huge role as well, as it has played in politics.
Absolutely.
It has played a huge role in the Catholic Church. Once people were allowed to watch Mass at home, they didn't feel this need to go into the church building. And we're starting in just small numbers see a change of that in the American church, of people returning in person. And of course, there are orders from the diocese or the archdiocese saying, you get back in here, we need you in the pew. Yeah. We also need your giving, we need your money in the envelope. But that is where we're also at this crossroads of making sure that the church is meaningful in person to people.
As with work, so went worship. I didn't know that they were so closely aligned.
Well, the spiritual part of this shouldn't be lost in the discussion. It's not just religious politics. It's not the Pope as a global leader necessarily. This is a one-on-one point of spirituality for Catholics, and that's one of the reasons why the selection of a Pope is so important individually to people in the United States, in Chicago, but around the world.
All right, let's talk some of the names. We're, of course, again, that quote, those who are talking don't know, and those who know aren't talking. We don't have any certain feeling one way or another, but there are names we keep hearing as contenders. So take us through, Marianne, you first. Who are some of the names when you go to Rome in a couple of days that you're going to be really paying attention to?
And I've looked at 10 different lists. I've looked at, lists from Europe and lists from here. There are 3 names that appear in most of lists. Yes. Doesn't mean that will be, but that's what I keep saying. Sure. For instance, Pietro Parolin. He is the current Secretary of State. He's 70 years old. He's a Vatican diplomat. He is Italian. He is considered Francis-like, but a bit more of a centrist. Anything else you know about him?
No, and I've tried to avoid putting my finger on one person or another in these discussions.
Yeah.
Just because I think it's not dangerous, but you're probably going to be wrong.
Exactly, exactly. So now I know
low degree of confidence is what that's called.
I might know a lot about Parolin, and then they're going to name someone else. Yes, but back to him for just a moment.
Yeah.
He is the person who met with J.D. Vance first.
Oh, okay.
With Vice President Vance that weekend that he was there over Easter. And then after that, Vance did meet with the Pope. So he is considered, the diplomat of the Vatican. He does have little pastoral experience, much more of administrator.
Okay.
The other 2 names, the one who they've called Francis-like or the Asian Francis is Luis Tagle. He is from the Philippines, a church that is vibrant of Catholics. Believe it or not, being 67 years old, I love this part, he is considered perhaps too young.
Too young.
Too young, yes.
I'm sensing another Senate theme, a U.S. Senate theme between the...
But he has led the missionary office of the Vatican and really focused on Asia and Africa, and is considered charismatic and a good communicator. Of the 3 top ones that I keep saying, Peter Erdo from Hungary, who is 72 years old. He is a favorite of the conservatives. He speaks 6 languages, a serious theologian, is a scholar, an educator. He also is someone who champions the church's positions on abortion and same-sex marriage. He is, of course, in the conservative wing of that. In fact, opposes divorced Catholics from receiving communion. So he would be the antithesis of Francis, but he is someone that people are looking at.
So when each vote happens, I'm really curious, and I don't know if you're even able to answer this question. How do we find out after each vote fails, because it's rare they get it on the first try, how do we find out whose stock goes up and whose stock goes down by day? Or do we just continue to guess because there's no communication with what's going on in the Sistine Chapel?
Right. I don't think we know for sure till it's over.
Well, over the years, there have been attempts, primarily by the Americans, to hold briefings of some sort to kind of give a window to some of these things. That happened a number of years ago and was shut down by the Vatican. And so I don't think you're going to see anything that even is remotely close to that type of an arrangement.
Yeah.
Clearly, unlike the United States Senate, you don't have cardinals opening the locked door, coming out, but to the microphones and giving rundown
or texting in a Signal group chat,
or doing anything like that. Exactly.
But I loved this part. So there are, when the votes are taken, and they literally write down a name on a ballot and come up to the ballot box. So there are 3 cardinals who watch the process of the recording of the votes.
Do they vote as well?
Yes.
Okay, they're voting too.
Now that's a good question. I do believe. I don't know. I wonder if that could be someone.
Non-voting.
They might be non-voters.
Well, they could vote. Yes, but
yes.
maybe
It could be it could be non-electors.
Okay.
Anyway, 3 are watching the actual vote. 1 records the vote. 2 record the vote in writing. The 3rd says the name out loud. So everyone who was in the room can also be tallying up. Okay, Tagle has 40 and Erdo only has 20 or whatever it might be. Right. And that's sort of their check and balance of making sure that everybody's on the same page with these votes. So then the room sees, appears that we've got someone that might be the next pope. Is that the one we want? Or do we really want to get another delegate, do we want to get the votes going over here? Do we want to lobby for someone else?
I'm sure a lot of people who are watching and listening might be thinking, that sounds like what I saw in the movie Conclave that just came out, because that's exactly how at least that part is portrayed in the movie. What other similarities or maybe Hollywood embellishments can be drawn between real life and the movie. Chuck, do you know some of the?
Well, I do. I just know that the people who have followed this closer than I have over the decades say that the movie did get the process right, based on what they know about it.
Right.
Again, there are no TV cameras in there. There's no great documentary done with a camera inside the conclave.
No Netflix series on how a conclave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Sistine Chapel is not wired up, and we're not going to know that. But the so-called experts say that the process is accurately reflected in the movie. You won't see Stanley Tucci over there probably working the room, but you will get the sense once a pope is picked that it's been by that process.
Yeah. The timing of this is just fascinating between the movie coming out and
Yes.
this playing out in real life. The smoke. I know people who don't know anything about this process know about the smoke. Do we know the origin of that tradition? And if not, how? Tell me about the process of the smoke and the elation in the square once we've got the smoke that everyone wants to see.
So if there is not a 2/3 vote, they burn the ballots. They burn the ballots either way.
Right.
But they burn the ballots, and if there is not a 2/3 vote, the smoke is gray. Now I just had an update from those who are watching this process much more closely and say there will be 2 smokes a day. There will not be smoke after every single vote. Right. There'll be a morning smoke.
Okay.
And there will be an afternoon.
I didn't know. I did not. Very Italian, first of all, and I didn't know that. I thought it was a smoke after every
each vote. No,
it's not so.
So it's going to be approximately 6 a.m. Chicago time.
Right.
Look for something to happen, and again, not until 3 or 4 in the afternoon, Chicago time.
Right.
And they just put in new incinerators, I think.
Yes. Because even they realized,
right? They had been
smoke was
burned out and they weren't great. Yeah. So maybe it'll look different this time.
Making it better for TV. I want to ask, just maybe broadly, for people who are not Catholic, don't pay attention to the church, may not really be as invested. Why should people care about this process? Of course, there's the spectacle, there's the rarity of it, but why is it so important on a global scale, like you talked about, Marianne? Is there a bigger meaning here that should make people care, even if they haven't paid enough attention to the church?
Well, I do think that the world looks for moral authority. And whether you're Catholic or not, you look for someone to speak up and say, this is wrong, this is right, this is where we should be headed. When there is war, when there is so much chaos underway. Perhaps we've seen Francis be more political than other popes have been, but I do think people still have appreciated his thoughts, where he comes from. And maybe they've taken, those who do not appreciate his view have said, of course, that's how he feels. But I do think that the world is looking for someone who would have the moral courage to stand up and say, here's where we should be. We should be thinking of the poor. We should be thinking beyond ourselves. Why is there so much unease? Why are there so many countries that have bombings underway that we don't even understand here, to live in that chaos of Ukraine and Russia and others? Yeah, I do think there is this need of wanting to hear what the moral voice says.
And the church has been around for more than 2,000 years with a lot of different looks to the face of the church. Don't forget, it's just since World War II when the Catholic Church took a lot of heat for the slow reaction to Nazi Germany, and rightly so. Go fast forward to President Ronald Reagan and Pope John Paul II, and what happened behind the scenes with the fall of communism and the demolition of the Berlin Wall, and how all of that played out. It was really the prototype for perhaps what the Pope of the new millennium should be like. Francis took it a direction that was social justice angled. Maybe this next Pope is going to be more involved in geopolitics around the world and use that moral authority to try to make a better place for all of us.
You certainly saw the influence of Francis with whatever it was, 60 heads of state and
Right.
dignitaries that come. It takes a lot for a group like that to all be in one place. All right, so we've got this conclave. It happens very rarely. This will be your third, Marianne. I want you to give me your takeaway as you are setting out on this journey as Catholic cardinals decide to pick a new pope. What's your takeaway?
The chaos of the world today, whether you're in the United States or you're somewhere else, I think there's so much uncertainty and so much of people who wonder, where are we headed? What is our future like? And I do think that the Catholic Church has been that voice of looking out for those who are not often considered perhaps the most important. So what direction does the church want to go? Does the church want to continue to say that those on the margins are those that we care about the most? Or are we going to make the tent smaller, perhaps, and say, these are the rules, these are the guidelines, if you want to be a part of this church, here's where you need to be. And I do see the argument for both. But the direction of the church is just really important at this time.
Chuck, what's your takeaway
Well,
from entering this
I really saw the importance of a pope, any pope in people's lives, Catholic or not in Chicago, and actually nowhere in the United States, but when I went to Cuba a number of years ago when Pope Benedict visited there. And you really do see people on the margins, as you say, and the importance of a spiritual leader like the Pope, with millions of Cubans turned out and never even got close to him. They were able to hear what he had to say, and it became this great point of light in their lives just because it was a man from Rome who came, and he was the spiritual head of the Catholic Church. And I think we sometimes take for granted the importance that an individual can have on people's lives. And when you have 75% of the church staying home on Sundays in Chicago, maybe an individual who will be named Pope in 2025 will start to change that.
It's going to be interesting to see who that next individual is going to be.
Will.
We're going to find out very soon. Chuck, Marianne, thank you so much for the conversation.
Thank you.
Even if you're not Catholic, the influence of the church in American life, and especially life in Chicago, is really undeniable. And the church is at a point right now where it really feels like it has to decide between two diverging paths. Both Marianne and Chuck hit on that. It's going to be interesting to see if the church decides to be more like a pendulum and swing back, or continue the work that Pope Francis has done. Francis seemed to make the tent bigger, and people seemed to really like that. The church appeared to have some momentum and popularity, even with non-Catholics. And it's going to be so interesting to see if the church picks someone who will have that same type of mass appeal globally. All I know is this conclave is going to be absolutely fascinating with the choice that the cardinals have to make. And I'm going to be on the edge of my seat day by day, looking for that white or black smoke. What's your takeaway? I want to read them in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that conversation, here are some other episodes of The Takeaway, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to listen on the go, check us out on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.